because we've been doing everything virtually, we've been able to actually create structures where people can talk to each other in the group during the session like this in Zoom, but also in between the sessions. And what we're starting to see now is starting to like look at really group bioinformatics, I guess, one way or another. Like how many, if someone has more connections to more people in the group and they message more people, do they get better more quickly? And how can we set people up for success by introducing them to each other? I want to play you guys a clip. It's just 5 minutes. It's from an interview that I did this week. It's actually out on the podcast this week. It's with Dr. Zach Bush. And we sort of bridged your two worlds, interestingly, and I'd love to share it with you and then get your feedback on it. So let's just watch this. And by the way, keep the questions coming in on Twitter. We'll have a bit of time here, but this is 5 minutes from Dr. Zach Bush. If you haven't listened to it or watched it, you can check it out on the Evolution of Medicine podcast. I think the health coach is a very interesting sort of exponential person in the ecosystem, because what that person is in general, in my experience, is someone that has gone through that sort of dark to light process. Like they've woken up, they're doing some other job, they get chronically ill, they find a way back, they turn on, typically earlier than the end of life, but they're like light again. They understand that healing is possible and they've done it. And they want to be part of something that facilitates health in others. And I think with this group model, we've uncovered that a group model run by coaches, one of the things that's been missing from the sort of classic functional medicine experience is that you never meet someone else who's reversed their chronic illness. Right? The doctor may or may not have. That may be the reason why they've come across, but if we have to wait for everyone to get chronically ill and have their aha moment, it's going to be too late. One of the things that we've seen in this sort of team-based care model is like, who do you have on your clinical team who, one, can inspire patients to say, look, I did it and you can do it. And this is like, I'm going to share my own apology for the way that I didn't take care of myself and I had to sort of change my personality and change who I was in order to heal, and you can do it too. But then to see other people, doing it who are just like you. And I think there's something really powerful in that, because if you can take one person's experience and possibly multiply that by 20 in a group, or 400 20 groups at a time by one coach, now you have something that can be exponential in nature, and one light can turn on another light. And I feel like that's the potential of what I've witnessed in the last 2 years, is that there is an exponential mechanism for one person to share another person's light. And in the context of like a functional medicine practice or a medical practice, it can actually be like harnessed in a way that is capable of an exponential shift.
It's beautiful. We've gotten to see that happen under a microscope in our lab, over and over again for the last 10 years as we've studied the communication network of the microbiome. So this is basically the wireless communication between cells. That's called redox chemistry. And bacteria and fungi, each in their own species, makes about 10 or 15 of these variants of carbon molecules that can carry electrons. And so they basically form in liquid state a liquid circuit board where information can travel very rapidly from cell to cell. And so we've been the first lab to get to witness, in the world, what happens to human cells when you put them in the bath of a microbial communication network, which is obviously where the first single-celled organism turned into a multicellular organism in the stew of this communication network. And so it's really been a humbling and awe-inspiring journey to see what happens when the communication network of nature is put in contact with human cells. And this has never been seen before in laboratories, because in every single petri dish ever studying cancer, autoimmune disease, vascular disease, whatever model, every single one of those was done in a sterile petri dish. And so we only understand human biology in a complete disconnect from nature. And therefore we don't believe in healing. Therefore we don't believe in miraculous recovery, because we've never seen it before, because we were studying human cells in isolation. And so our very scientific model towards which we try to understand human health is so fundamentally flawed in our current understanding of how biology happens, that every conclusion that's ever been made in a peer-reviewed journal article is a half-truth at best. And so we have to remember that we have misunderstood the human life potential because we believed it to be an isolated event. As we reconnect humans to this communication network of nature, the very first thing that happens is that the cells, getting the wireless communication network, immediately hardwire with fiber optic cables called gap junctions. And thousands of these little cables go from cell to cell. And this whole gap junction that may contain 1,000 little tiny hollow cables within it is 100 times smaller than a human hair. And so it's this tiny bundle of cables, but at the end of every single one of those hollow tubes that's now 1,000 times smaller than a human hair, there's a perfect light aperture that can open and close, letting more or less light from one cell to the next. And so what you just said was you saw one person sharing light with another. That's literally what happens at the cellular level. Is as soon as there's communication, they immediately set up fiber optic cables to share light between cells. And there's something really beautiful at that microscopic level to understand that the microbiome allowed for multicellular life to occur through its capacity to connect cells by wireless communication that then inspires a hardwired sharing of light. And for that light transfer, we managed to make the first nematodes and earthworms and humans, because of our capacity to share light. And so your community connection is basically the macro expression of how biology occurs.
Yeah, your psychologist that's coming back into the community, right, to now run these groups. It sort of that gave me a sort of a chill when I heard him say that, because I understand that that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, our massage therapist, we trained her. She now does massage for people in our community. All of our staff, we've been together for over 15 years because we like each other. We like the work we're doing. A strong shout out to coaches. A lot of places aren't able to, they'll say, afford coaches. But we've moved. Just one of the innovations we're doing with groups that it might be helpful for people to hear about is that we've moved into direct contracting and value-based care. And wouldn't you know that, as Nathan pointed out, loneliness may be one of the biggest predictors of poor health. Well, it is, so when we make our patients less lonely, when we provide them services they otherwise can't afford, like acupuncture and massage, they use the emergency room less often. They use fewer medications. And so we're in a value-based contract. We do have risk. I guess we could lose, but we're winning. We're doing very well. And that allows us to uncouple the idea that the doctor needs to be the one providing the everything, so that there can be a billing encounter. I just wanted to say that because that's a big innovation that we're very proud of at our center. But yeah, I'm not surprised that on the microscopic level and on the big level, I can't wait to find out when it is, because we can sense it. Me and Marisol and Crystal and Jennifer and all of us who've been doing these groups for years, we'll go, oh, this group's not going well. Oh, this group is. Okay, now this group is. They're all caring about each other, even if they have different opinions and things. And I can't tell you what it is. Is it an odor? Are we smelling a pheromone? Is it, we hear the tone of their voice is something different? Is there, what was that molecule, Nathan? Is there prolactin increased? I have no idea. Like what are we sensing? But we can tell, and so, when you're able to do value-based care, you can do just good medicine. And that probably includes all of these things, including doing testing for maybe these small, unique things to people that could ultimately prevent a lifetime of disability. So yeah, very exciting. A lot of reactions to that.
If it's anything like the microbiome, it might be a smell, because it could be quorum sensing, right? A little bit of that. So that actually came up on that podcast too. I think we were just talking about that. Nathan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you heard from Zach, and sort of like, I know you spent a lot of time looking at the microbiome and understanding how it works and the complexity behind it. Did that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot to unpack. I think that there's no doubt that we can learn a lot from each other, and that patients can learn a lot from each other of, the others that are going through the similar experiences with them. And, as we do peer-reviewed studies and, the case control design studies and all these kind of things, you typically are isolating, right, a single variable, and you're trying to see, does it, is there an effect, right? Do you get a p-value? Do you see it? Is there something there? All right, and that's very valuable. But in your own life, and as you're going through, there's probably a bunch of different things that you have to do to get yourself to optimal health, right? There's probably a whole bunch of little of problems. And I think it's that complexity, and this is where I think functional medicine comes in really nicely, because you have to kind of figure out within the context of your life, your lifestyle, your problems, your history, and so forth, how to pull together all these disparate aspects to make as big a difference as possible in your own health. And that part of the journey, I feel like, is really augmented by having other people that are going through the similar experiences who can share.